It was a grey morning in Edinburgh when Joanne received yet another letter, thin, clinical, impersonal. Another rejection. Her 12th. Each one chipped away at her, yet oddly fueled her fire. She clutched the envelope, heart heavy but mind buzzing. Because deep down she knew Harry Potter deserved to live, even if the world wasn't ready yet. Years before the rejection letters, it began on a delayed train from Manchester to London. Rowling sat quietly, no pen, no paper, just a flurry of thoughts. A boy with messy black hair, glasses, and a lightning-shaped scar. He appeared in her mind fully formed. She didn't know his journey yet, but she knew it would change hers forever. In cafes across Edinburgh, Rowling wrote between sips of coffee and glances at her sleeping daughter. She had no job, lived on welfare, but carried a universe in her mind. The world outside was bleak, unpaid bills, cold nights. But inside her notebooks, magic thrived. Every sentence was resistance. Every page a quiet rebellion. Against the silence of rejection. Her manuscript, typed on a borrowed typewriter, was finally complete. Rowling packed it with trembling hands and mailed it to a dozen publishers. Weeks passed. Silent. Then one by one the rejections returned. Each letter a reminder that dreams weren't facts. But on the edge of giving up, her phone rang. An offer. One small press, Bloomsbury, said yes. Not because they saw magic, but because the founder's 8-year-old daughter begged for more. Just 500 copies. That was the first print run of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. No fanfare, no flashing cameras, just a quiet launch by a tiny publisher. Rowling signed books in cramped stores, sometimes to empty chairs. But whispers began. Children passed the book around. Teachers took notice. And something was stirring. A quiet ripple that would soon become a global storm. Word spread fast. From schoolyards to libraries, kids couldn't put it down. Soon, larger publishers came knocking. Scholastic bought U.S. rights for $105,000, an unheard-of sum for a debut. Rowling was stunned. The woman once told her story had no market, now watched it fly off shelves. Bookstores sold out. Newspapers called it a literary lightning bolt. And yet she still wrote alone, grounded in disbelief. In just a few years, everything changed. The woman once surviving on benefits became wealthier than the queen. But Rowling didn't chase fame. She donated millions, stayed out of the spotlight, and kept writing. Her story wasn't about getting rich. It was about proving every no wrong, every gatekeeper, every skeptic. Because behind the fortune was still the mother writing in cafes, fighting to keep the magic alive. Harry Potter became more than a book, it became a universe. Translated into over 80 languages, adapted into blockbuster films, studied in classrooms. Millions found hope in a boy who lived. But perhaps Rowling's real legacy isn't Hogwarts wands or spells. It's the message etched between the pages. That rejection isn't the end. It's the test of how deeply you believe in your story. Think about it, if one more publisher had said no. We might never have heard of Harry Potter. 12 rejections. And still she persisted. Not out of arrogance, but belief. Belief that stories matter. That magic exists in perseverance. Rowling's success isn't just literary. It's human. A reminder that your yes could be one letter away. So write, send, repeat, until the world listens. J.K. Rowling didn't just write a fantasy, she lived one. Born from hardship, rejection, and a fierce love for story. Her journey proves that even the smallest voice can cast the loudest spell. So if you're doubting yourself today, remember the woman in the cafe, scribbling dreams no one believed in yet. Believe in your voice. Believe in your story. And if nothing else, believe in magic. Years later, Rowling framed those rejection letters. hung them proudly above her writing desk like war medals. They weren't failures. They were proof that she showed up. Again and again. She once said rock bottom became the solid foundation. And for millions who feel invisible, her story whispers. You don't need everyone to believe. You just need one. And that one starts with you. Critics once dismissed Harry Potter as just for children. But grown men cried at Dobby's death. And adults found courage in a boy's fight against darkness. Rowling didn't write down to children, she wrote up to humanity. Her words built bridges between generations, cultures, and hearts. Because in the end, her success wasn't about wizards. It was about truth wrapped in fantasy. And truth speaks to everyone. Rowling once said the idea of dementors came from her own depression. Grief and despair shaped her villains. Love and loyalty shaped her heroes. She wove her own struggles into spells, her pain into plot twists. And maybe that's the real enchantment. Not fantasy for escape, but fantasy as reflection. She didn't just write about magic. She used it to survive. Before the fame, before the films, there were drafts. Dozens of them. Sentences rewritten, whole chapters scrapped, quiet battles waged in ink. Rowling rewrote The Philosopher's Stone more than a dozen times. Not because it wasn't good, but because it had to be true. She wasn't chasing perfection. She was chasing meaning. And sometimes, the real magic lives not in the first draft, but in the courage to start over. At the height of Pottermania, Rowling watched people dress as wizards, line up at midnight, weep over fictional deaths. But what moved her most were the letters. From kids who felt seen. From adults who found courage. One child wrote, "Your book saved my life." That's when fantasy stopped being fiction. Because when a made-up world makes someone feel real. That's not just storytelling. That's healing. It all began with one child. The daughter of a Bloomsbury editor, who read Rowling's manuscript in one night and said, "Dad, this is better than anything." Without that one voice, Harry Potter might never have been printed. Rowling didn't need a crowd, just one person who believed. So if you're creating something today, don't chase the world. Chase the one. Because sometimes one reader is enough. After the applause fades, there's a silence. Fame is loud, but writing is quiet. Rowling returned to her desk. Not to top the last book, but to stay true to the voice that started it all. She still doubted, still edited, still feared page one. Because success doesn't erase uncertainty. It just teaches you to write anyway. That's what separates authors from dreamers. Not talent, but persistence. Even after changing the world, Rowling wasn't spared. Critics attacked her success, her choices, her voice. But she never wrote to please everyone. She wrote because the story wouldn't leave her alone. And that's the cost of creating something real. You will be questioned, doubted, misread. But she kept showing up to the page. Because in a world full of noise, the blank page still listens. After 17 years, Rowling wrote the final words. All was well. Ending Harry Potter wasn't easy. Not for fans and certainly not for her. But true storytellers know. Every chapter needs a close. She said goodbye to the boy who lived, knowing his world would live on without her. And in doing so, she proved the most magical act of all, is letting go. After Potter, Rowling faced a new challenge, reinvention. She published under a pseudonym, started over as Robert Galbraith, wanting the work judged on its own. No fame, no expectations, just story. Few knew it was her. And when reviews came in, some were harsh, some kind. But she smiled, because even after millions of copies sold, she still craved what all writers do: the quiet thrill of being read. Rowling doesn't write for headlines. She writes because the silence feels heavier without words. Because stories saved her once, and now she hopes they save someone else. She said there's always room for a story that can transport people. And maybe that's her real gift. Not spells or bestsellers, but reminding us that imagination is survival. That when the world feels too dark, we can still write the light. Imagine if one of those publishers had said yes too early. Before the story was ready. Before she was ready. Rejection didn't delay her success, it shaped it. Every no refined her voice. Every setback a forge. And when the world finally opened its door, she walked through carrying not just a manuscript, but proof that failure is part of the formula. Sometimes the rejection is the magic. You can measure her success in numbers. 600 million books sold, translated into 80+ languages. Or in films, theme parks, and midnight launches. But the truest measure isn't on a chart. It's the quiet comfort her stories gave the lonely. The courage they sparked in misfits. The belief they planted in kids who didn't fit in. Because long after the pages fade, impact remains. If you sat across from her today and asked how she did it, she wouldn't say luck or genius. She'd say, I kept going. Through rejections, doubt, and poverty. Rowling wrote, she didn't wait to be chosen. She chose herself. So if you're waiting for permission, stop. Write the first word, then the second. Because every great story, even hers, began with a blank page. One day Rowling will be gone, but the story she gave the world will still be whispered in bunk beds, quoted in classrooms, tattooed on arms. Because great stories outlive us. They become part of others, shaping, healing, guiding. J.K. Rowling didn't just write Harry Potter. She passed down a world that says, even the most unlikely person can change everything. Rowling never waved a wand, but she cast the greatest spell of all: belief. She made millions believe in magic, not because it existed in books, but because it existed in them. Her true power wasn't storytelling. It was unlocking something already inside us. So maybe the real magic isn't Hogwarts. It's knowing that even out of rock bottom, a story can rise and lift the world with it. This story isn't just about J.K. Rowling. It's about you, the writer with a drawer full of rejections, the dreamer clinging to a half-finished draft, the believer still waiting for a single yes. Rowling's journey proves you don't need a perfect start, just a stubborn heart. Keep going, keep writing, because one story, your story, might be the next to change the world. There was a time no one knew her name. No fans, no franchise, just a mother scribbling in silence. But silence, when filled with purpose, becomes powerful. Rowling didn't break through overnight. She chipped at doubt word by word. And the same silence that once held her back eventually held the sound of children reading aloud, of pages turning, of the world spellbound. Before Hogwarts there was a napkin, a train ride, a woman too broke to buy coffee, but too full of story to stay silent. That's where it began, not with lightning, but with loneliness and longing. So if you're waiting for the perfect moment, stop. Start with what you have. Write it down. Every great story, even the ones that change the world, starts exactly where you are. This isn't just the story of J.K. Rowling. It's a mirror A reminder that stories change lives, especially the ones we dare to write ourselves. You don't need magic to matter. You need truth, courage, and a pen that won't quit. Her chapters are done, but yours, they're just beginning. So go, start your first page. And remember, somewhere out there, a reader is waiting for your story. If this story moved you, don't let it stop here. There are thousands more untold. Stories of struggle, grit, and quiet magic behind success. Subscribe now and join us in uncovering the real journeys. The ones without shortcuts but full of truth. Because every icon once started unknown. And maybe the next name whispered in wonder could be yours. Believe in storytellers. Believe in yourself. Hit subscribe and begin.